Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. Today is Good Friday, the Christian holy day commemorating the crucifixion of Jesus and his death at Calvary. It is observed during Holy Week as the second part of the Paschal Triduum and is the only day in the year on which the Catholic Church does not celebrate Mass. The Passion of the Lord is solemnly read and the crucifix is venerated. In Poland, it is also known as Holy Friday or Great Friday.
Good Friday is an exceptional day in the liturgy of the Catholic Church. There is no Eucharist on this day. The Mass celebrated on Holy Thursday was the Vigil Mass of the Good Friday. The liturgy of the Great Friday is devoted to the Passion of the Christ, during which the Passion of St. John is read or sung. The liturgy also includes the prayer of the faithful, adoration of the cross, communion, and ending with the transfer of the Holy Sacrament to the grave. St. Paul says that Christ died for our sins. By looking at his suffering on the cross, everything that is connected with his humiliation, killing, our sins, that sin is not a trifle but something that Jesus put on the cross. An important element of Good Friday is the way of the cross. We need forgiveness, and forgiveness depends on our decision. It is not a matter of getting rid of our emotions. It is also not fighting the emotions. It does not concern the past, only the present. Do not agree with what was wrong, but I do not want me to be hurt more. The main way of the cross in Warsaw will begin in the evening under the leadership of Cardinal Kazimierz Dolny. This year's reflections on the way of the cross, which traditionally passes through the Colosseum under the leadership of Pope Francis, was written by an 80-year-old Italian nun, Eugenia Bonetti, who runs an association that helps the victims of slavery, especially women forced into prostitution.
On the 19th of April, Poles recall the events of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising in 1943, when the Jewish combatants began their ultimately hopeless battle with the German troops sent to liquidate the ghetto. This year's commemoration started with a quotation from Władysław Szlenga, a Polish poet and chronicler of life in the ghetto. He died in the final days of the uprising.
At noon, on the 76th anniversary of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, next to the Heroes of the Warsaw Ghetto Monument, the commemoration honoring the Jewish fighters who fought Germans on the 19th of April 1943 began.
In this place where we stand, in which the Polish citizens, Jews of Polish ancestry, fought for freedom, we want to say, just like the prayer, Am Israel Chai, it means the Jewish nation is alive, and we want to accentuate our solidarity to it, to the Polish citizens, after this desolation, what happened on our land through the German nation. We stand by the statue of the heroes of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising and by the Museum of the History of Polish Jews, which shows around 1,000 years of history of the Jewish nation in Poland, which makes us all the more united. To place the flowers together with the insurgents of the Warsaw Uprising in the name of the Polish president is a visible sign of our common remembrance that the events of April are connected to the ones of August.
On the streets of Warsaw, over 2,500 volunteers handed out paper daffodil flowers. This is the 7th edition of a campaign prepared by the Museum of the History of Polish Jews, Poland. Besides yellow paper flowers, the volunteers also shared facts and knowledge about World War II, the ghetto, and the heroes of the uprising of April 1943.
The event isn't just about handing paper daffodils to passers-by. That would be too mechanical. We want people to stop for a moment and reflect upon the tragic events of 76 years ago.
The leader of the Law and Justice Party, Jarosław Kaczynski, announced on Wednesday that he had sent a draft of a declaration of conditions on which Poland would adopt the euro as its official currency to the heads of the most important parliamentary groups. The leader of the European coalition, Grzegorz Schetyna, and the leader of the Kukiz 15 movement, Paweł Kukiz. The declaration calls for the introduction of the euro to be delayed until Poland reaches the same economic level as Western Europe. Alexandra Zajecka has more.
The leader of the Law and Justice Party, Jarosław Kaczynski, called on the leaders of two major players in the upcoming election to sign the declaration not to adopt euro until Poland is ready for that economically. The leader of the Kukiz 15 movement, Paweł Kukiz, responded immediately that he is ready to sign such a declaration. He added that this movement had proposed a similar declaration 1 year ago. Today, the leader of the Civic Platform Party, Grzegorz Schetyna, reacted to the issue by avoiding a direct answer and proposing a debate one-on-one with Jarosław Kaczynski about Poland's economic position position in the European Union. Also, he wants the leader of the governing party to answer 3 key questions. First, is his party going to stop breaking the democratic standards of the EU? Second, is the Law and Justice Party able to recover the money lost in the negotiations over the future budget? And third, is the Law and Justice Party going to cut ties with those extremist groups which are associated with Putin's Moscow and want to break up European Union from within? Those 3 questions are being posed by Grzegorz Schetyna to the leader of the Law and Justice Party.
It is very unfortunate that this subject is being brought up during the Holy Week. It is very unfortunate this is happening when we are all preparing to the most important Christian celebration of Easter. We should spend this holy season in the right mood, with family, and not talking politics. We should be talking about what brings us together, and not introducing aggravating subjects. Mr. Schetyna started in good style, but the conclusion of his response was catastrophic. This was Grzegorz Schetyna's clever way out to avoid signing that declaration. Perhaps, I am just guessing, so perhaps when he signs this declaration, then Mr. Kaczyński will agree to such a debate.
Whether the debate will take place at all remains to be seen. The spokesman for the Law and Justice Party, Beata Mazurek, stated in response to those proposals that she hopes that Mr. Schetyna does sign the declaration and that his refusal to do so means that the European coalition favors adopting the euro as soon as possible.
New facts have emerged today about the possible cause of Monday's devastating fire at Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. The French investigators now believe that the fire was caused by an electrical short circuit.
Today, the Associated Press has released information about the matter, citing one of the French officers who is investigating the Notre Dame fire. The policeman also revealed that investigators still don't have permission to enter the burnt-down cathedral. The reason for this is security concerns. The structure is still supported by wooden props. Meanwhile, information came out that 3 years ago, specialists had reported a high risk of fire in the attic of the Notre Dame Cathedral. The RMF-FM radio station reported that the document indicated that if a fire in the attic were to occur, it would be impossible to save the roof. However, the report on this matter was classified.
That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, business and more programs. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.
Welcome to Poland Daily Weather. In this night, sky will be a little overcast in the most regions. Temperature increased to 6 degrees in Gdańsk. The minimum temperature will be 4 degrees. Wind will be light. Let's take a look at the forecast for tomorrow. In the most region, we may expect plenty of sunlight. We will see the highest temperature, 20 degrees in Zielona Góra and in Wrocław. In central Poland, temperature will range about 18 and 19 degrees. The minimum 15 degrees will be in Gdańsk and in Koszalin. We don't expect any rainfall that day. Pressure will fall. Let's see the forecast for the next days. On Sunday, sunlight will appear in all regions. Temperature will rise to 20 degrees. Plenty of sunshine is expected in the whole country on Monday as well, and we are expecting similar temperature. On Thursday, temperature will increase again and will range from 70 to 22 degrees in Śląsk. Goodbye and see you soon.
Poland Daily Business Edition, and we have a news for you. Prime Minister of Poland, Mateusz Morawiecki, spoke to Elon Musk regarding investment in Poland. It's the most logical investment for Tesla. We've been talking about that since a year, at least, with Olaf Wojak, our guest, sir. Welcome to the show.
That's true. I'm very happy that it was mentioned, that it was said, that our Prime Minister is advertising Poland as it should. Each time Donald Trump came to Poland, he always were promoting his country, companies from his country, and he always wanted to sell something from the United States to Poland. Right now, we are on the opposite side, so it's a great news that that our politicians are right now representing Poland as they should.
At least this was a right decision to speak. We actually recommended Elon to talk to our Prime Minister, and well, it happens. This is a prophetic program, ladies and gentlemen.
Very good. He's watching Poland.
Okay, but Tesla is moving forward. So if we are on the topic of electric cars, so what is going on right now in this market?
Well, it's happening a lot. Tesla it's really doing good. They're selling lots of cars. They're right now manufacturing their 500,000 car this year. So it's a tremendous success. They're trying.
It's all for the company that started pretty much in a garage producing one car a month or something like that.
Not even. He said a month ago there was a promotion of a Model Y, and he said that the first car was made in 3 months. So it was they made it in 3 months, one car, and right now one car is made each few minutes. So it's really tremendous success. They are number one in Norway. They're number one in Switzerland. So
in terms of the new cars sold to the public.
Yes, Model 3, and right now they are preparing. To start their program with cars riding themselves with absolute automatization of driving. And it's good that our Prime Minister is talking with Elon Musk, since he might enable a few things in our law to enable self-driving cars in Poland earlier than other parts of the world. It's a future. It's a future, and we wouldn't like to be behind. We want to be on front of everyone. So it's a big possibility.
Poland tried to bypass this and launch our own program of electric car, but I don't see much progress in that area.
Unfortunately not. I wouldn't like to talk about...
Too late?
I wouldn't like to... Well, we have great engineers. We have people that are really smart, and we can really do it, but we don't have first knowledge, and we don't have the budget. And it's much easier to work with someone that already has the experience. So if we somehow would start working with Elon Musk or Tesla, like Fiat is already doing, like Toyota is doing. They announced half a year ago that, well, they don't have any electric car program, and they're much behind, so they have no other choice just to work with Tesla. So that means if you don't have anything, you should start to work with someone that's stronger and with the best partner right now on the market. I am happy that we are trying to work with the best. So I think it's a tremendous future of Polish electro market if we will work with Tesla company and Elon Musk and all his crew.
Tesla is developing its supercharger network all over the world. They started in Germany, in Europe, I believe it was 3 years ago, or maybe it was 4 years ago, but until very recently there was only one supercharger in Poland, which sort of, for the Tesla drivers, put us off the map.
Right now there are 4, and there are other 4 in plans, so there are going to be at least 8. But Elon Musk is talking about building the whole network throughout the Europe, and it is going to be possible. It costs a lot. It's a tremendous, a lot of to do. I mean, especially work to do to connect all of those superchargers. Please remember that they are connected either through internet, and they need a lot of electricity, which in Poland we don't have enough. So it's a problem. But he'll get over it, and we will have the network. Of course, we won't have a network of superchargers as big as Germany and other markets, because they sell more Teslas. But I hope that our government will make our economy better, that we will earn more, that we will have more money, and that we can afford to buy Tesla.
Yeah, Tesla.
Have in mind that in Norway a few years ago, their prime minister negotiated with Tesla better price for their country. So their own citizens buy Teslas cheaper than the other parts of Europe and world.
Norway has generally more expensive cars than the rest of Europe, and this is why they drive old junks. But that's a different story. Let us move to you mentioned the availability of Tesla, and they are entering a leasing program, which is very interesting for customers that cannot afford upfront cost of $30,000 plus.
Yeah, that's true. You can buy a car, you can pay rentals to their own company. It's not started in Europe and Poland yet. You cannot buy using this method in Poland, but it's great that they're starting this kind of
time.
It's a matter of time, and it's great that they're starting this kind of program, so everyone can try at least to have a great car.
They do what all other car companies are doing.
And no, never did. Never did.
The leasing of the car?
But you don't understand the whole point of view. On one hand, they're giving the leasing. On the other hand, they're enabling you to earn money using that same car, because you can lend this car to other people using their own app. This is what they're starting to do. So you can either buy an expensive car and then make money out of it. Yeah. And third thing that they announced last week was that they are going to sell battery packs for Tesla to exchange. Whenever your battery pack is going to go down after 10 years, for instance, you can change it under service and buy just for that part, and you can longer the life of their car, which
up
is
to
already
1 million miles.
1 million miles, so it's 1,600,000 kilometers in Poland. It's unbelievable.
Olaf Wojak with unbelievable news tonight. Sir, welcome to the show. Well, thank you very much for this participation.
Thank you very much.
And that was it for tonight's Poland Daily Business.
Welcome back to Poland Daily Weather. Let's see the forecast for tomorrow. In most regions we may expect plenty of sunlight. We will see the highest temperature, 20 degrees, in Zielona Góra and in Wrocław. In central Poland, temperature will range about 18 and 19 degrees. The minimum 15 degrees will be in Gdańsk and in Koszalin. We don't expect any rainfall that day. Pressure will fall. Let's take a look at the forecast for our continent. In the Balkans, temperature will range from 15 and 18 in Sofia. Temperature will increase in Scandinavia to 18 in Oslo and 21 in Stockholm. In British Islands, we may expect pleasant weather with temperature which will range from 20 to 24 degrees in London. Thank you for watching and goodbye.
Okay then, so welcome back. You join us here in front of the Basilica, and we're in the Old Town Square. And in the Old Town Square, absolutely packed full of tourists. In fact, the only thing there are more of tourists are the pigeons, which are everywhere. Now, I'm joined here by Anya, who's Poland Daily's resident ethnographer. Anya, welcome to the show.
Welcome, hello.
So, Anya, we're going to talk a little something about the Basilica. So first of all, tell us, when was it built?
This is original basilica from middle centuries. It was built between 13th and 15th century. So I think it's pretty old, but yes, and it's one of the most popular churches in Poland.
Yeah.
Second church in Krakow after Wawel. It's the biggest and the most popular one.
Definitely no dead bodies in this one, right? No dead bodies there. Let's just be clear that the dead bodies are actually in Wawel, not in the Basilica behind us. Now, interesting thing about the Basilica are the two towers that you can see behind us. Now, the two towers are far from identical. And as I understand it, there's quite a legend behind the building of those two towers. Tell us a little something about that.
Yes, there were many legends about these towers, but the most popular, I think, it's one of about the two brothers who were supposed to build them, because citizens of Krakow wanted to have the most beautiful church in their city. So they were supposed to build two high towers next to the basilica, and there was some family issue during this history, because one tower was much more beautiful. It was prettier, higher, better even.
So the builders of the two towers were two brothers, right?
Yeah, they were brothers, and the younger brother was supposed to build the north tower, and the older the south one. And during this process, as I said, one tower began higher, bigger, and more beautiful.
Yeah.
So there is a bit of magic in this legend, because here we go, the devil who appears, and we have here the issue that the devil whispered to younger brother that he shouldn't let his tower to be less monumental and shorter and worse than the other one. So he just
that devil.
yeah. So he just killed his brother. He just threw the knife into his heart, and after he found out what he did, he just fell off his own tower. So that
so he committed suicide after he'd done it.
Yes.
There's a strong feeling of guilt having killed his brother, right?
Yes. So the devil came out. So that was the issue. The build stand like this, and the other builders finished the towers just with covering the roof. And this is
how it was completed.
Yes.
And finished like this. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
I say, maybe we go and have a closer look at the basilica. Let's go.
Krakow is Poland's second largest city and one of its oldest. Situated on the Vistula River in the Lesser Poland region, the city dates back to the 7th century. Krakow was the official capital of Poland until 1596 and has traditionally been one of the leading centers of Polish academic, economic, cultural, and artistic life. Cited as one of Europe's most beautiful cities, its old town was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The city has grown from a Stone Age settlement to Poland's second most important city. It began as a hamlet on Wawel Hill and was already reported as a busy trading center in Central Europe in 965. With the establishment of new universities and cultural venues and the emergence of the Second Polish Republic in 1918, and throughout the 20th century, Krakow reaffirmed its role as a major national academic and artistic center. The city has a population of about 770,000. After the invasion of Poland by Nazi Germany at the start of World War II, the newly defined district Krakow became the capital of Germany's central government. The Jewish population of the city was forced into a walled zone known as the Krakow Ghetto, from which they were sent to German extermination camps such as the nearby Auschwitz, never to return. In 1978, Karol Wojtyła, Archbishop of Krakow, was elevated to the papacy as Pope John Paul II, the first Slavic pope ever, and the first non-Italian pope in 455 years. Also that year, UNESCO approved the first ever sites for its new World Heritage List, including the entire Old Town in inscribing Krakow's historic center. Krakow is classified as a global city with a high sufficiency ranking by GAWC. Its extensive cultural heritage across the epochs of Gothic, Renaissance, and Baroque architecture includes the Wawel Cathedral and the Royal Castle on the banks of the Vistula, the St. Mary's Basilica, St. Peter and Paul Church, and the largest medieval market square in Europe, the Rynek Główny. Krakow is home to Jagiellonian University, one of the oldest universities in the world and traditionally Poland's most reputable institution of higher learning. In the year 2000, Krakow was named European Capital of Culture. In 2013, Krakow was officially approved as a UNESCO City of Literature. The city also hosted World Youth Day in July 2016. You can find more information at krakow.travel, the official tourist website of the city, where you can find an intuitive planner of stay and ready sightseeing routes, including routes around Kazimierz.
So here we will see the knife that was this knife, what was in the heart of one's brother.
Ah, so this is the knife that killed the older brother?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. So and they've hung it at this Sukienica?
Yes, the Sukienica, which was just the market.
Yeah.
The main point at the square.
Right.
So here hangs the knife.
Uh-huh.
That everyone should see it and should remember what happened.
Aha, so is it a kind of symbol of, I don't know, right and wrong, or don't betray your brother, or?
Yes, basically, and to remember that the devil is everywhere and we should be...
Beware of the devil, yes. It's a good moral at the end of the day. So, shall we, it's in there?
Yes, it's there. Over the entrance.
Ah, there it is. Okay, I see it now. Right, let's go and have a look.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Poland Daily History. We are here at the city of Lublin, one of the most historical and largest cities of all of Eastern Poland. Today, we are going to the Catholic University of Lublin, a bastion of the anti-communist movement during the time when Poland is in the grip of the Soviet Union. It was also the home to Karol Wojtyła, who would later on become the Pope John Paul II. There, we will talk to a historian who specializes in 20th century history. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are in Lublin, more precisely the Catholic University of Lublin, with our historian here to explore more about the region. As we all know, in the 20th century, Lublin, or Poland in general, has been through very turbulent times. So I was hoping if we can talk a little bit about the region, about that time era. Let's start from the beginning, and can you tell me a little bit of the turn of the 19th century? How does Lublin look like, and the population, constitution, and all that?
Lublin w końcu XIX wieku był niezwykle interesującym miejscem.
At the end of the 19th century, Lublin was an extremely interesting place. This is where the interests of various European powers came into contact and which at times turned into conflicts. The Lublin province, because Lublin was part of the Russian state at the time, while also being the capital of the Lublin province, bordered with Austria-Hungary. This meant that in the event of war, Lublin and the Lublin voivodeship would naturally quickly turn into battlefield. At the same time, Lublin was a place of rapidly developing industry. While in the middle of the 19th century, Lublin had around 30,000 inhabitants, by the end of the 19th century it had grown to almost 100,000. It was also a very multicultural city at that time. At the end of the 19th century, around half of the people in Lublin were Jewish. The other half was the Polish Roman Catholic Lublin. The very center of Lublin was inhabited by the Russians working for the Russian administration. So there were three interesting cultures constantly penetrating each other in this city. If we look at Lublin as a place of intellectual life, it turns out that Lublin was extremely important, particularly for the Jewish people. The best rabbinical schools were in Lublin, as well as the most substantial Jewish bookshop and library. Lublin was a kind of Jerusalem of the north, but a Jerusalem of enlightened Jews, literate Jews. At the end of the 19th century, it was decided that the best Jewish university in the world would be created here. This is a very interesting story related to the intellectual status of Lublin. The famous Jewish writer Isaac Singer wrote a book Yentl, which was later made into a movie in Hollywood. It's a story about the Jewish girl who could not study because she was female, so she dressed up as a man and began educating herself in Lublin. She finished rabbinic school here before leaving for the United States, where she would become an outstanding scientist. This is a true story, and it occurred here, in this city. Due to the city's rather rapid development, it was home to unhampered, rich social, intellectual and cultural life. The end of the 19th and beginning of the 20th century saw the development of socialist movements. The Russian 1905 revolution also took place in Lublin, and it was a very bloody affair. Socialists and people favoring communism fought the ND, or Endecja, the so-called National Democrats. There were also the Bundowcy, a group of Jewish socialists. To put it simply, Lublin was an immense melting pot that was constantly cooking, but at the same time it was a city which, during this time, built many beautiful buildings, set up parks and established all the necessary fundaments for intellectual life.
Budowało w tamtym czasie piękne budynki, zakładało parki i stworzyła podwaliny życia intelektualnego.
Most people have heard about Poland's tragic fate during the Second World War, but less is known about the hardships the nation suffered during World War I. Next up, we will ask Professor Wnuk about how Lublin fared during the First World War. So the bloody fighting in 1905 was soon repleted in World War I, only about 10 years later. And I was wondering if you can tell me about how the fight in World War I affected this region in particular.
Polacy w okresie I wojny światowej nie mieli swojej armii i walczyli przeciwko sobie.
During the First World War period, Poles didn't have their own army and fought against each other in various European armies. This meant that the inhabitants of Lublin, both Jews or Poles, fought in the Russian army. Meanwhile, Poles from the cities of Poznań or Krakow, who were drafted into the armies of Germany and Austria-Hungary respectively, fought on the opposite sides of the Poles in Lublin, and Poles on both sides were shooting at each other. Indeed, the Lublin voivodeship shared the fate of the entire Polish area during the First World War, and this is the place where the front moved back and forth for 2 years. Lublin was occupied, well, exactly occupied or liberated by the Germans in 1915 and ceased to be the capital of a Russian province, becoming the capital of Poland under Austro-Hungarian occupation. At the same time, the part of Poland occupied by Austria-Hungary was attached to the part occupied by the Germans, and a small state was created beside Germany in 1916 called the Polish Kingdom. This was, as it later turned out, the Poles' first step to regaining independence after 123 years as a partitioned state. Lublin, occupied by the Germans, became an important center for independence activities. The Polish Socialist Party, led by Józef Piłsudski, played an important role here. There was a very strong center of Polish military organization in Lublin, so Lublin became a place where the Polish army and Polish administration was organized in the underground. At the same time, officials from the kingdom created by the Germans organized this administration legally as an occupational administration. The paradox was that most of the officers, officially appointed by the Germans, were at the same time members of the Polish underground, or more specifically the so-called Polish military organization. From the Polish point of view, the years of 1916, 1917 and 1918 constituted a period of occupation, while simultaneously also being a time of great hope. In 1918, on the night of the 6th and 7th of November, the first Polish government was formed in Lublin. This government was extremely important, a milestone in terms of the process of Poland regaining independence. This government was extremely democratic. It immediately announced an 8-hour workday as obligatory, a 6-day working week, and gave women voting rights. It was a gigantic step, not only towards independence, but also to creating a democratic Polish state.
Jako obowiązujący 6-dniowy tydzień pracy i dał prawa wyborcze kobietom. Był to więc olbrzymi krok nie tylko w kierunku niepodległości, ale również w kierunku stworzenia demokratycznego polskiego państwa.
So in 1918, when Poland finally regained its independence, how does the social fabric of the place look like?
W tym momencie, w roku 18, Polacy zaczynają być, to jest pierwszy moment, kiedy zaczynają być większością w Lublinie, a Żydzi stają się drugą co do wielkości.
This moment in 1918 is the first time when Poles became the majority in Lublin, while Jews became the second largest inhabitant group. At the same time, the city is incredibly diverse. We still have the Tsarist Russian center of the city, mainly represented by the Aleje Racławickie and Krakowskie Przedmieście streets. We still have the old medieval market and the entire old city. We have the royal castle towering over the city with an absolutely amazing Jagiellonian chapel. At the foot of the castle we have something which isn't there anymore, the Jewish town with its rich tenement houses as well as the poorer wooden area. We have the district of Wieniawa, the very poor Jewish area. We also have the workers' villages, inhabited by socialists, where things are constantly heated, because on the one hand there is poverty, but on the other a great potential of young people who want to do something with their lives. Finally, it's a city where the Polish and the Jewish intelligentsia rival one another.
Z jednej strony bieda, z drugiej strony olbrzymi potencjał młodych ludzi, którzy czegoś chcą. W końcu jest to miasto, gdzie rywalizują ze sobą inteligencja polska i inteligencja żydowska.
As we have seen today, Lublin has a very long, yet at times dramatic history. But places such as the Catholic University of Lublin sufficiently demonstrated the city spirit and their love for freedom. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. I'll see you next time on Poland Daily History.
Here I am. I'm sitting on the steps of the old synagogue here by the small town square, the Mały Rynek, which is behind me, and the large Rynek, which you have seen before, is just in front of me. So I guess the thing to say is it's very important to remember not only how closely married the Catholic and Jewish residents of Poland are through history, but that in this particular town, it was a microcosm of Polish relations. In other words, you had the best of all worlds. You had a very successful community, and in this case, about 50% or more Jewish. They usually resided here on the side streets or on the small square, that's why I mentioned it, and they would build their houses along here. In the 17th century, when restrictions concerning urban settlements were abolished, they were allowed to settle in the main market square. So not always first citizens, but as they grew in stature, in wealth, and in respect locally, they began to live side by side with the Catholic majority. During the golden age of the town, there were a lot of significant Jewish merchants, and they were sending their goods up and down the river to Krakow and up to Gdansk and to the Hanseatic ports and to wherever they could sell these goods within Europe and sometimes further afield. They were mainly involved in trades and crafts, and it's important to remember that the Jewish heritage is a little bit different than you might think, because in the Jewish community and even in Kazimierz, what was prized most of all was knowledge, even more than wealth. Knowledge was the thing that was important. So people could be, men could be extremely poor and still be very revered, and even be at the top of the social ladder, so to speak, even if they didn't have a lot of money, because they were so learned. So this is an important thing to remember. And this type of scholarship was practiced here. In fact, a lot of the basic trades were looked down on. And if you were going to do something like a shoemaker or being a musician or useful trades that combined some type of artistic skill, tailoring, this was considered much more acceptable. So that's worth knowing, I think. Before World War II, there were a lot more religious buildings here, and there was still quite a large Jewish community. What happened, of course, with World War II was that the entire Jewish community was shipped off to the concentration camps, and in effect, there was no longer a Jewish community in this part of the world at all. Jewish people were thoroughly integrated into the life of this town for many centuries. I guess that's the point. And the Christians and the Jews of Kazimierz lived in total cooperation with each other, even though some of their habits were quite different. But religious habits, obviously, everyone knows, and some of the culinary habits as well. But these things mix and match through times, the culinary habits. The poorest, the Hasidic Jews, would be walking through the streets with their long side locks, and they'd be wearing their dark clothing, their black clothing, and they'd have the Shabbat candles would be flickering in the light, and prayers would be emitted. This was a very religious time. There was a lot of time for reflection when you weren't working, because what else could you do but read or reflect and say your prayers? The shtetl is the word we use to describe the village settlements, and these were throughout Poland. Of course, this was totally destroyed with the German invasion and the Nazi murder of the Jewish population in Poland, and not only. Type of art that was captured in the paintings of Marc Chagall, the great painter Marc Chagall. He was mostly painting Jewish shtetl life, and also Chaim Goldberg, who was an extremely gifted cataloger, chronicler of shtetl life, life in this part of the world during the 1930s up until the war, when he had to try and get away. At any rate, here we are. We're sitting on the steps of the synagogue, not destroyed, and now a building still in service, but as a guest house. Anyway, that's some picturesque history of Jewish life here from the time of Kazimierz to World War II. Poland Daily. Stick with us. So in 1536, the first synagogue was built in Kazimierz Dolny, and the Jewish community, which had existed from the 14th century, started to become wealthier and wealthier and more settled in this area. It was one of their leading communities in the whole of Poland. Right now, we are inside the old synagogue, at least in the downstairs part, in the basement, so to speak. It's now a guest house above us, which is fine. The building is still in use, and as you will see from the photographs and the filming that we're doing, it's still rock solid, absolutely. So let's take a look at some of the photographs that we have on display here. Take it away.